Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this Saturday we have Atomic Robo-Kid, a 1988 arcade classic. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. Atomic Robo-Kid recently released on the Nintendo Switch as an arcade archives title. It was previously available as such on the PlayStation 4, though only on the Japanese PSN. Originally releasing from developer UPL in 1988, in the arcade, it would see ports to the TurboGrafx-16 in 89, and in 90 it was ported to several systems including the Sega Genesis and the Commodore 64. So, inserting coins will begin as playing as Atomic Robo-Kid. So initially we don't really have the ability to do much. We can run around and shoot our cannon, but we don't have the ability to fly until we pick up one of these two fly power-ups that happen to be right where we start. It's a weird choice as those power-ups, that power-up never goes away once we obtain it, and it's truly necessary for a lot of the game, so why make it a power-up at all? So there are metal birds that we can shoot to obtain power-up crystals. The first one that we've obtained here is the Fire 2, which is basically the upgraded version of our main shot. It deals much more damage and pierces through enemies quite well. So as you can see with the slimes, most enemies behave the same way. We can touch enemies and we won't take damage, but they will slow us down. And that makes it significantly easier for us to get hit by enemy shots and die. So we can continue to shoot power-ups until we can get what we want. That was a speed-up power-up, but N-Shot gives us rapid fire, although we can have rapid fire thanks to the emulation. What I was looking for is this three-way laser. So the three-way laser allows you to go and shoot forward as well as diagonally up and down. It's really quite useful and helps unlock certain power-ups and hidden items that happen to be spread out through some stages. So it's a useful weapon to have, as well as dealing a fair bit of damage to the enemies. So let's see if we can get the other two weapons that are in the game. Fire 2... Nope, doesn't look like it. We'll just pick it up as a blue orb. So if you pick up enough blue orbs, then you'll gain a temporary shield that will activate once you're hit. That shield will allow us to travel faster, as well as void additional damage for a short period of time. So the game has a Thunder Force-like system where if we happen to die while holding a particular weapon, in that case the three-way, then we lose that weapon when we spawn. A bit unfortunate, but it can happen. So our goal in most of the acts is to make it to these portals, and once we dive into those doors, we're taken to the next act, sometimes with this kind of a cutscene thrown in between. So here we're leaving the inside of the planet and going up into space. Really, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense as this is supposed to be taking place, at least as far as I can tell from the story, all on one particular Earth outpost a couple hundred years in the future. So basically this radiation wave and evil enemies when came and hit this planet, mutating the transplanted life, as well as basically fighting all the colonists on there. And for our role as Robo-Kid, we're trying to save the colonists from, well, you know, these terrible enemies that we happen to be fighting. So here's a section that would be impossible without having the fly power-up. So as I was noting, it just doesn't make much sense why it would even be a power-up at all, like let alone at the beginning of the game, as if you didn't collect it, you wouldn't even be able to get past stage 2. So these vertical sections can actually be really challenging, as it's hard to make your way up without encountering shots from the enemies, and one shot, as you've seen, kills us. So we'll slowly inch our way forward, and that's kind of the way that I take a lot of this game. It's just moving forward, sometimes using the terrain to our advantage. This little mini boss here that we're fighting can be really dangerous, but fortunately we can trap him on that wall, and this is a great opportunity to kind of show one thing I do really like about this game. There's 2 possible exits we can take, and depending on which exit we take, the path to our boss is going to be different. There are a total of 6 bosses throughout the course of the game, and several acts to get to those bosses. Oh, dang it, I missed the chance to go and show off the 5-way. Oh, well, we'll talk a little bit about the missile. But you can take multiple paths to get to the enemy. It doesn't change things up too much, but still, it's fun sometimes to explore different stages and see different areas on our way through the game. So the missile is an interesting weapon to use. It is the one that has the greatest range of fire around you. It can fire in 8 directions, but it just feels kind of slow and clunky, at least to me. So when you pick up the Rensha, you get an extra 30 seconds of auto fire, but fortunately, thanks to the emulator, we actually can use auto fire right from the get-go, so it doesn't have as strong of an effect as it would have playing this game originally in the arcades, but it's still nice that it's there. Still, once we move through the area, we come to our door, jump into that, and we find ourselves at our first boss. So the bosses are impressive in a way. We're in this large room, and the boss takes up a fair portion of it, but the problem is they try and pin us in. So we have to work our way around the boss, basically kiting him up and down and being careful not to find ourselves trapped against a wall. That's one of the easiest ways to die, but when we're able to successfully take out the boss, and it's significantly easier with the powered up weapons, I feel like those explosions are really cool. Unfortunately, those are also the explosions you get when you have a game over. And then after you fight a boss, there's this weird duel stage where we're fighting this robot that's similar to ourselves. And the goal is we've got to shoot past these slimes and destroy him. But it's rather difficult as the AI is actually fairly effective at dodging our shots. So I feel like this battle mode comes down to luck more than anything. Just happening to get a shot that makes it through the slimes and happens to be where the other Robo-Kid is at. Once that's finished, we'll move on to the next section. So unfortunately, one thing that Atomic Robo-Kid does not have is a great variety of enemies. You'll see the same enemies repeated time and time again. It's a little disappointing as mostly the visuals in this game are actually very good. It's like bright, colorful. The sprites are really large, although that's a problem that I'll get to here in just a little bit. And we do have some variety to the type of stages that we encounter. Like here, we're almost in this castle-like stage. That enemy always gets me the first time. I just never expect him to be coming. So one thing that's fun about the movement in Atomic Robo-Kid is it's actually kind of a free movement, where it's primarily horizontal scrolling, but the horizontal scrolling is controlled by the player itself, as well as the vertical scrolling. We'll just dive right past him and take one of the exits rather than risk fighting him. So that's definitely neat. So that's basically what we have here for Atomic Robo. We keep on moving through stages, fighting those portals, taking sometimes different paths, and then ending up at bosses. So minus flavors, so big sprites definitely, but that's a problem. Our main sprite itself is huge. Atomic Robo-Kid, like, it's just a gigantic sprite, and unfortunately, your hitbox is your entire sprite. So there was a game over, and we got to see the awesomeness when we explode that way. Other minus flavors? Well, there are often times where I feel like we encounter a lack of power-ups where we don't really have any power-ups that you can collect. So you can start out the game getting strong, but then past a certain point, you just are stuck fighting through the game with the base laser, which isn't particularly very effective on certain stages, really. And then the boss fights, they're cool initially, but unfortunately they get really samey as you go play through the game. They all basically behave the same way. We fly around the boss, shoot up any gun turrets that it happens to have, and then just dodge around it until we can shoot its core, its main weak point, and rinse repeat until the boss is defeated. And all the boss fights that I've played in the game behave the same way. But as far as plus flavors are concerned, well, that was our shield. So we got hit and it activated automatically. The plus flavors are the graphics. I feel like there's a great amount of like colorful graphics here. The big sprites, like I mentioned. There's the neat explosion effects that happen, especially when a boss or your character happen to explode. And then I love it when a game gives you multiple paths, even if it ultimately leads to the same location. Being able to go and tackle the game in different ways is really satisfying. So this boss I'm fighting here is one that I'm not necessarily a fan of. So Atomic Robo-Kid is an interesting curiosity, and I'm glad for the chance to be able to play it, and I'm glad that it's available on a platform like the Arcade Archives. But unfortunately, it's one that I feel is largely skippable, as the flaws that it have can make the game too frustrating a lot of the time, and really that's not why we go and play games. So there are like better shoot 'em ups from the time to be playing. Well, that'll just about wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. Atomic Robo-Kid served up for your enjoyment. As always, I want to thank you so much for coming out and joining me for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.